Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back once again on the Steve Austin Podcast Show. Shane Mcmahon talked about a variety of things, but in particular, he talked about why guys in WWE may be walking on eggshells and why WWE ECW was basically supposed to be NXT. So let's hop right into that.
With there being really nowhere else to go, you have your other promotions that are still around, Ring of Honor, TNA, or whoever's running. I knew when I was in WCW that WWE at the time was the big leagues. I knew that ultimately that's where you want to go. Mm-hmm. So all the other territories are gone now. Because there really is nowhere else to go, are the guys in the locker room not as free to explore? Almost like Chris Rock with the cowbell. More cowbell, explore the space with that cowbell, that famous Saturday Night Live skit. You feel like guys are walking on eggshells these days because there is nowhere to go, and for fear of, hey man, if I get fired here, I can't go nowhere else.
I'm sure there's some of that. The freedom to kind of try things out is limited a whole lot more. I mean, you can do a whole lot more of that on house shows. And that's, as you're well aware, when you're trying certain things, did this work, did it not work? When it comes to TV, it is so finite of the amount of time you have. Going back to what we originally started talking about of telling a story, it's hard to tell a good story in 4 minutes if you have 4 minutes of action.
Correct.
So you either gotta cut elements out and you got to go right to the heat, or whatever story you're trying to get across, how's that pushing your story forward to the next week, or eventually building until you have the time to tell it in pay-per-view. So that's a big distinction. I think a lot of the guys also, again, with the territory system drying up, they've never had the ability to really go try it somewhere else. So they don't know. It's like any experience. If you went out to play football and you're playing, sandlot football, and you're like, oh, this is pretty good. Then you play some organized football in high school, and all of a sudden you get not clean. You're like, wow, this is a lot harder. You get to the college level, you're like, woo, this is a whole lot more difficult. So there's not that maturation process, that it used to be. So we've had to recreate it, and that's really what NXT is now there to be. Even before and Paul Triple H has done a phenomenal job, with a whole cast of guys of really building that territory. Dusty, prior to him, and Paul's taken it, to a whole nother level. Prior to that, that's originally what we wanted ECW to be when we first purchased it. I wrote the business plan for ECW just to be that AAA system, because we needed guys, whether you're coming up or coming down. You have certain guys that are going to peak. You can't stay at the peak forever. So as they come down, we'll start taking some of that knowledge and take a kid, and say, all right, here is in the ring. You can educate them of why you're doing this, or feel the crowd. Let me teach you how to do this. All right, come at me, let's start. You got him. Give me a little bit more heat, or shut him down. So it's... No, I was just wondering what went wrong with ECW, other than the fact that people thought, it meant just when under the big banner of WWE, it had to be to PC. When ECW was louder, bigger, badder, bloodier, more violent than anything else. Do you think ECW didn't make it just because they had to tone it down too much? No, I don't think so. I mean, that was how they distinguished themselves. With some of those crazy things, but people remember some of the crazy stuff, but there was a lot of great matches that didn't have the crazy stuff in there in ECW. So we had to tone it down, but, the whole Attitude Era, as we went through, we weren't PG. We were PG-13, if not a little higher than that. So we were having a blast. So I don't think ECW suffered that. Everything is kind of toned down now because of acceptance and sponsorships and advertisers, and just kind of where the American value system sits at the moment. So from an advertising standpoint of where people are putting their money,
right.